Good morning again, and happy July. Maybe turn it a little bit this way, so I won't be talking that direction. But what's that? This past 4th of July, I went fishing up in the Mammoth Lakes area, which is a little bit south of north of Yosemite. And during this time, it was just me and my friend. We were chatting about various things. And one of the topics that came up was something called trail magic. Have you guys heard of trail magic before? Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. It happens to hikers, oftentimes when they're on long distance trails. And I asked, like, what's trail magic? And then he gave some of his examples. And one of the interesting examples, oh, so what trail magic means, I better use the term. It says it's a term used by hikers on long distance trails to describe unexpected acts of kindness and generosity. Offering rides, coolers of drinks, it's mostly when you least expect it, and they're always unexpected acts of kindness and generosity. And so what happened to my friend was that he went hiking from Tulum to Yosemite. It's like 50-mile hike, and then they were supposed to, oh no, it's a 30-mile hike in, and they were supposed to ride the bus back 50 miles. It's 50 miles to drive, 30 miles to hike in, and they misread the schedule. And so there was no bus service running from Yosemite back. And so they were stuck, and they had no idea what to do. There's no taxi, and you could hitchhike, which you see a lot happen there too. But they were just kind of like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And then so they went to the hotel to think about things, and then they randomly asked the lady who was working at the hotel, saying, "Is there any kind of transportation here to get back to Tulum, and then to Tuolumne?" And she says, "Oh, I'll drive you. It's 100 miles round trip." And they were like, "No, no, we don't need you to drive us. Are there other ways?" And I said, "No, it's not a problem. I have nothing to do anyway." And so she drove the two friends from Yosemite to Tuolumne, 100-mile round trip, because she has to drive back. And it was no problem at all for her. And she says, "No, it's totally fine." And so she said that was trail magic. Completely unexpected, random act of kindness. Nobody does that. Nobody would drive me to San Jose and back for just a random person you just met in the lobby of a hotel. And so there was all these other incidents, even the 2 years ago, when some friends were walking like a half-mile uphill to get to the parking lot. A van saw them walking up, so they offered them a ride. Again, unexpected, so they didn't have to walk half a mile. And then on our way back up from that same half mile, driving back down and driving back up, we saw another hiker there. And so we decided to pay it forward. And we picked him up, and he was super happy too. And so it's interesting how there's this trail magic happens. I guess because everyone's in a good mood up in the mountains. You're surrounded by nature. You're surrounded by just good vibes. It's very interesting. You could leave your backpack unattended and it'd be just fine. I was like, "We don't have to lock the door right now." I was like, "No, it's okay." Like, what do you mean? And so there's this sense of trust amongst even strangers. And it's very interesting because, in the city, in most cities, we got to be cautious all the time, right? You can't trust a lot of people or a lot of situations that go on in the city. But in the mountains, Yosemite, Mammoth, Tahoe, like all these deep forest areas, there's this trail magic that happens. So it's like, oh, that's so interesting. And there's a lot of stories online about this happening as well. And the people who are helping the hikers out, they're called trail angels, because it just randomly happens. They're like the angels who come to save them. And it's not something that's organized, it's just on a whim. People say, "Oh yeah, I can help you. Oh yeah, I have some food. Oh, I have some water, snacks, anything," right? It's just these random acts of generosity and kindness. And I thought that was very Konko, right? It's a very Konko thing. It's a very faith-centered thing, but it's more just the kindness of people. And I realized that's how we can practice our faith. How do we incorporate? That's always kind of like my theme, is how do we incorporate faith into our daily life, into our simple everyday life? Or what are little things we can do to help incorporate these acts of kindness and generosity in our hearts? So during memorial services and funerals and celebrations of life, one of the common themes I hear from A lot of people who come to speak for the eulogy, they would be like, that person was so kind, that person was so generous. That's what's oftentimes remembered. And that's what I remember as well, the kindness and generosity of the people who've passed away. A lot of the names we read today during the memorial saishi, during the memorial prayer service, memorial service prayer, it's a lot of fond memories come up with the people who've passed away. And I also, again, it reminds myself of the kindness, the generosity, the simple smile. These kind of simple acts of faith is what remains in our hearts. And just like in the Konko Creed, the third to the last one, I like this one a lot. It says, we live our faith in service to kami, each other, and our world, nurturing and nurtured, mutually fulfilled. And so it's just that. It's like, it doesn't have to be trail magic. It could even be street magic. It could be all kinds of things, right? It doesn't have to be only up in the mountains where it's just nice and amazing. You could have that same kind of feeling. You could have the same kind of kindness, same kind of generosity. Of course, use judgment, but in general, we could share that same level of kindness and generosity. I think everyone can appreciate that. Everyone here can appreciate that as well. So that's just the one takeaway from my speeches and sermons, that just one takeaway to think about for the rest of the week, for the rest of the year, maybe even, and to adopt this lifestyle of kindness and generosity, because that's always been my inspiration for a lot of the church members here, a lot of the past ministers, my parents, many people in my life have this common thread of kindness and generosity, and I hope it can inspire you as well. Thank you.